Hello everyone, I'm Elian. Today I'll tell you the story of the rich versus poor mindset and why it's not about money. Sometimes the biggest difference between people isn't what they have, it's how they think. You can give two people the same opportunity and one will grow while the other will walk away. You can give two people the same advice and one will reflect while the other will defend. You can give two people the same challenge and one will say, I'll try, while the other says, I can't. The truth is, what we carry inside, our mindset, is more powerful than what's outside. Let me welcome you properly. If you're new here, I'm Elian, and this is English and Chill, a quiet space where you can improve your English and reflect on life at the same time. You don't need perfect grammar here. You just need curiosity and a little bit of heart. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing how we're all learning together across the world. Let's begin. He's lucky. She was born into it. People like me don't get far. These are the quiet voices of a poor mindset, not because they come from people with less money, but because they come from people who've stopped believing in new beginnings. And I get it. Sometimes life teaches you to expect the worst. You try and fail. You trust and get hurt. You hope and feel nothing changes. So after a while you stop. But here's what I've learned after over 20 years of teaching and talking to people from every kind of background. Rich, poor, young, old. The biggest difference isn't who has more. It's who believes they can be more. A rich mindset has nothing to do with your bank account. It's the belief that even if you're behind, you're not done. It's the quiet confidence that says, I'm allowed to try again. I want to tell you a little story. Years ago, I was teaching two adult students in the same English class. Both had come to the US recently. Same age, same situation, same starting level. One would ask questions, stay after class, write new words in a notebook and review them each night. The other would sit quietly, often say, I'll never get this, and skip lessons when it felt hard. After 6 months, guess who was speaking with confidence? It wasn't because one was smarter. It was because one believed, if I work at this, I'll improve. That's the core of a rich mindset. It's not that life is easy. It's that you believe your effort is worth something. Here's a quiet truth. Your mind is always growing roots. The question is, where are they growing? Are you feeding the belief that things can change? Or are you watering the thought that you're stuck? Sometimes we don't even realize the small ways we keep ourselves small. Maybe you said some of these, I'm not the type of person who can do that. I'm too old to start over. I don't have time to learn. But what if you just need to speak to yourself differently? What if a richer mindset begins with one softer sentence? Like, this is new, but I'm learning. It's hard, but I'm not giving up. I don't know yet, but I'm open to finding out. When you carry a rich mindset, you start to notice something. You don't feel jealous of other people's success because you believe you have your own path. You don't fear failure the same way because you see it as information, not punishment. You don't hide from effort because you know every small step is part of becoming someone new. And slowly, your world starts to open. You hear things differently. You see options instead of obstacles. You begin again, even if no one's clapping. That's power, that's richness. Let me leave you with this for today. You can be in the same place, but live in a different world, just by choosing a different mindset. The question is not, what do I have? The question is, how do I think? Because if you believe in effort, if you believe that growth is possible, then you are already rich. Let that thought sit with you for a moment. Maybe you just needed someone to remind you that your mind is already shifting, one thought at a time. If you've ever said, I can't afford that, or that's just how life is, you're not alone. We say these things without thinking. They feel small, even harmless, but sometimes they quietly shape how we see the world and how we see ourselves, because language isn't just what we use to speak, it's also what we use to believe. Let's look at a simple phrase, I can't. That phrase stops more dreams than failure ever has. I can't start over. I can't change jobs. I can't learn English. Now compare it to this. I don't know how yet. That small change in language opens a door instead of closing it. It keeps a story going instead of ending it. That's the difference between a poor mindset and a rich one. A poor mindset uses language to stay safe. A rich mindset uses language to stay open. There's a word psychologists use, scarcity. It means the feeling that there's not enough time, not enough energy, not enough chances, not enough of you to succeed. And when we believe in scarcity, we speak from it. I don't have time. It's too late for me. I'll never be like them. But those words are not facts. They're fears. And if we keep repeating them, they become our world. Let me tell you something I once noticed in class. I had a student named Laura. She was bright, funny, and full of questions until we started speaking exercises. Suddenly she'd shrink. One day she said, I sound stupid. I'm not good at speaking. I paused and said gently, Laura, who taught you that sentence? She looked surprised. I don't know. I guess I taught it to myself. We both smiled, because when you realize that you created that sentence, you also realize you can create a different one. So let's practice. Instead of, I can't do this, try, I'm still learning how. Instead of, I'm not smart enough, try, I haven't figured it out yet. Instead of, this always happens to me, try, I'm still learning to respond differently. Language doesn't just describe your life, it creates the space you live in. And your words, they're like keys. They either lock the door or open it. Here's something beautiful to remember. A rich mindset doesn't always speak loudly. Sometimes it just whispers the truth quietly, over and over. You're allowed to grow. You're not stuck, just still becoming. You don't have to be perfect, just present. These are the kinds of sentences that build new foundations inside of you. You won't always notice it happening, but one day you'll speak to yourself more kindly. You'll try something scary and say maybe instead of never, and that moment will change something. We've all used poor mindset language before. It's part of being human, but every time we become aware of it, we get a chance to rewrite the script. So ask yourself, what are the sentences I say about myself every day? Do they give me freedom or take it away? Do they reflect fear or hope? You might be surprised at how quickly your world begins to feel different when the words inside you change. Let's be gentle with our words. Let's speak to ourselves like someone who still believes in us, even on the hard days, because someone does. Maybe that someone is you. We all have a relationship with failure. Some of us fear it, some of us avoid it, and some of us slowly, bravely begin to learn from it. The truth is, the way you respond to failure says more about your future than failure itself. Let's talk about that. There's a pattern I've seen in my students over and over again. The ones with a poor mindset treat mistakes like proof that they're not good enough, proof that they'll never improve, proof that they should stop trying. But the students with a rich mindset, they treat mistakes like feedback. They ask, what can I learn from this? And that simple question makes all the difference. Think about this. A baby learning to walk doesn't say, I'm bad at walking. They fall, they cry, they try again. No baby gives up and says, I guess I'll just crawl forever. But as adults, we do this all the time. We fail once and then we say, maybe this isn't for me. We don't realize the failure was the learning, the mistake was the message. A rich mindset understands this. You don't grow in comfort, you grow in resistance. And failure, that's just resistance, giving you a chance to strengthen. Let me share something personal. Many years ago, before I became confident in teaching, I gave my very first workshop. I was nervous, I spoke too fast. My PowerPoint froze halfway through, and during the Q&A, someone said, in front of everyone, this wasn't helpful. I wanted to disappear. That night, I sat in my room, feeling like I had made a mistake I wouldn't recover from. I thought, maybe I'm not cut out for this. But the next morning, I opened my notebook and asked myself a question. What would I tell a student if this happened to them? I would say, this isn't the end. It's the beginning of knowing how to do better. So I kept going. I studied speaking techniques. I practiced. I made small improvements. And now, that failure is one of my favorite stories to tell because it taught me that one bad day doesn't define your path. People with a poor mindset often believe that talent is fixed. You either have it or you don't. If I'm not good now, I'll never be good. But a rich mindset sees talent as something that grows, like a muscle. It says, maybe I'm not strong yet, but I can build strength. It says, maybe I failed today, but that doesn't mean I'm a failure. It says, mistakes are how I move forward. You know what's interesting? People who take risks, who try, fail, and learn, often succeed more over time. Not because they're better, but because they're not afraid to look silly, start small, or be wrong for a while. A poor mindset waits until everything is perfect. A rich mindset knows you grow into readiness, you don't wait for it. So if you've failed recently, if you've made a mistake that's haunting you, if you're afraid to try again because the last time hurt, please listen to this. You are not your failure. You are what you do after it. That moment of doubt, that fear, that small voice inside you, they don't get to write your ending. You do. Take the lesson, leave the shame, and take one small step forward. Because failure doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're learning something real. And every real thing we learn becomes part of who we are becoming. Most of us believe comfort is a good thing. A cozy room, a predictable routine, a life that doesn't surprise us too much. And yes, we all need rest, safety, peace. But sometimes, comfort isn't safety. Sometimes comfort is a trap, and the longer we stay in it, the harder it becomes to grow. Let me explain. When we think of growth, we often picture success, achieving something, reaching a goal, changing your life. But what we don't always see is this. Growth is uncomfortable. It asks more of you. It stretches you. And comfort, it wants to keep things exactly as they are. The poor mindset says, why change what feels fine? But the rich mindset says, what feels fine now might hold me back later. Here's a quiet example. Let's say you're working a job that feels okay. It pays enough. You know what to expect. You're not challenged, but you're not miserable. Sounds fine, right? But part of you is restless. You feel like you're not learning. You feel like you're shrinking a little each year. The poor mindset says, don't risk it, at least you have something. Trying something new is dangerous. What if you fail? The rich mindset asks, what if staying here is the real risk? What if comfort is costing me something? Growth doesn't always feel good right away. Sometimes it feels awkward. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like falling behind. But that's just the sound of old habits breaking. That's the sound of your life rearranging itself for something bigger. I once had a student, we'll call him Nico. He had been in the US for a few years working in a kitchen. He was kind, hardworking, and his English was okay. but he never spoke unless someone asked him a question. One day, I asked him privately, "Nico, have you ever thought of changing jobs?" He looked down and said, "No, I'm not ready. My English isn't good enough." I paused and said, "But how will it ever be if you never speak it outside this room?" He was silent. I told him something I'll share with you now. Comfort will protect you, but it won't prepare you. The rich mindset doesn't say go fast or take big risks. It says take one small uncomfortable step. Say yes to something that scares you, just a little. Stay open to hard things because they change you. The goal isn't to be uncomfortable forever. The goal is to pass through discomfort and arrive somewhere new. Comfort is like a warm blanket, good for a while, necessary even, but not where you build your life. So here's a question. What in your life feels safe but isn't helping you grow? It could be a job that's too easy, a relationship that doesn't challenge you, a routine that never changes, a belief about yourself that keeps you small. Maybe the real risk isn't failing. Maybe it's staying exactly the same. Let that idea sit with you. I want to remind you of something. Growth doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean running toward fear with no plan. It means gently choosing new things, even if your voice shakes. It means accepting that sometimes your heart will race before something beautiful happens. That's okay. That's part of becoming. So when comfort tells you, stay here, ask yourself, is this helping me become who I want to be? And if the answer is no dash, take one small loving step into the unknown, because the life you want probably lives just outside your comfort zone. There's a quiet belief in our world that being rich means having more money, more things, more success. But here's the truth, one I've seen again and again. Some of the richest people I've met didn't have much, and some of the poorest people I've met had everything on paper. So maybe richness isn't about what's in your hands. Maybe it's about what's in your heart. Let's pause and reflect. A poor mindset says, I'll feel secure when I have more. I'll feel happy when I get there. I'll feel worthy when I succeed. But a rich mindset flips it. I feel secure now because I trust myself. I feel happy now because I choose to notice the good. I feel worthy now because I'm growing. That's the secret. You don't wait for abundance. You create it in the way you see, speak, and live. I once knew a woman named Teresa. She worked in a small community center. Her clothes were simple, her life was quiet, but every time I visited, she would greet me with the brightest eyes. She'd offer tea, ask about my family, remember the little things I'd said weeks earlier. She was rich in presence, rich in attention, rich in warmth. And one day I asked her, "What's your secret?" She smiled and said, "I just believe that I have enough, so I always have something to give." That moment stayed with me, because real wealth isn't about having more. It's about needing less and loving more. A rich mindset is built on gratitude, not the kind where you force yourself to say thank you, the kind where you look at what's already in your life and truly see it. Gratitude turns small moments into treasures. It makes ordinary days feel meaningful. It helps you realize, I may not have everything, but I'm not empty. Even being here right now, listening, learning, caring about your growth, that's richness. That's abundance. Not everyone gives themselves the gift of self-reflection. You did. Another part of a rich mindset is generosity. Not just giving money, but giving time, giving encouragement, giving your attention to others when they speak. You can be financially poor and still be generous. You can be rich in money and still be closed off, afraid to share. But when you live with an open heart, you create a flow. And in that flow, life feels more connected. You stop thinking in terms of not enough and start living in the feeling of, I am part of something bigger. So how do you practice abundance, even when you feel like you don't have much? Try this. Start your day by noticing 3 small things you're grateful for. Celebrate effort, not just outcomes. Give a kind word to someone else, even when you feel quiet inside. Remind yourself that your journey matters, even when it's slow. Every time you do that, you step out of the scarcity loop. You step into a mindset that says, I have enough, I am enough, and I'm still growing. Let's be honest, life is not always easy. And yes, having money, stability, and safety does matter, but they're not the only ingredients for a meaningful life. There are people who have very little and still find joy. There are people who have everything and still feel empty. So maybe the deeper question is this: do I live like someone who believes they are becoming? Because that belief, that quiet faith in your own unfolding, that's richness. Let me leave you with this. Even if your bank account is low, even if your goals feel far away, even if you're not where you want to be yet, you can still be rich in love, rich in awareness, rich in becoming. And that richness, no one can take that from you. It begins inside. Many people spend their whole lives trying to change their circumstances. A new job, a better apartment, more money, a different city, a perfect relationship. And those things can be good. They can support us. But without an inner shift, outer changes often don't last or don't satisfy. Because the truth is, you can upgrade your life and still feel empty. You can get everything you thought you wanted and still feel like something's missing. Why? Because mindset isn't just how you think, it's how you see the world and how you see yourself. Let's imagine this. You give 2 people the same opportunity, maybe a scholarship to learn English abroad. One sees it as a gift. This is my chance. I will grow. The other sees it as pressure. What if I mess up? What if I don't belong? Same opportunity, different mindset, different results. This is why a rich mindset begins with something quiet and invisible: how you interpret your experiences. I want to ask you something gently. When something good happens to you, do you feel you deserve it? When someone compliments you, do you receive it or reject it? When life gives you a door to walk through, do you hesitate or step in? Many people stay stuck not because the path isn't there, but because something inside them says, I'm not ready, I'm not worthy. But you are. You don't need to earn your right to grow. You already have it, simply because you're here. The rich mindset sees every challenge as a chance. It doesn't ignore pain, but it doesn't make pain the whole story. Instead, it says, this is hard, but maybe it's shaping me. This hurts, but I trust I'll grow from it. This feels like the end, but maybe it's a beginning. It's not always loud, it's not always clear, but it whispers hope, even when things feel dark. That whisper, that's the shift. Let me tell you about a student named Fatima. She had tried to pass the English citizenship test 3 times. Each time she failed, her family grew more disappointed. She stopped coming to class. She felt ashamed. One day I called her and asked if she'd try again. She said, "Why? What if I fail again?" I said something soft, "Then you'll fail closer to passing." That made her laugh. She came back. She passed on her 4th try. And more importantly, she smiled like someone who finally believed she belonged. That's the shift I'm talking about. The one that begins when we stop asking, am I good enough? And start asking, what would I do if I believed I was? Your mindset is not a fixed thing. It's more like a garden. You can change what you plant there. You can pull out old beliefs. You can water new thoughts. But it takes time and love and a little bit of patience with yourself. Maybe you've been carrying an old belief for years. I'm not someone who succeeds. People like me don't get far. This is just who I am. But what if none of that is true? What if those beliefs were just old shadows? not your future. The rich mindset doesn't demand that you be perfect. It just asks, are you willing to look inside and begin again? Because once the shift begins inside you, your outside life will follow. It might be slow, it might be messy, but it will be real. So here's your quiet invitation. Before you try to fix your job, your bank account, your future, start with your beliefs. Start with the story you tell yourself when no one's listening. Because when that story begins to change, everything else does too. Section 7. One thought can change everything. Hello everyone, I'm Elian. Today I'll tell you the story of how one single thought can quietly change everything. Sometimes we think transformation has to be big, a huge decision, a dramatic turning point, a life-changing event. But real change, it often starts small, with one quiet sentence you finally believe. Something like, I can try again. Maybe I'm not broken, just growing. I don't have to stay here. That's the power of mindset. It begins with a thought and becomes a life. Let's go deeper. The poor mindset often believes, this is who I am. I can't change. Life is happening to me. Other people get to grow, not me. It makes you a passenger in your own life. But the rich mindset shifts the story. It says, this is who I've been, but not all I can be. I can respond, not just react. I get to choose how I show up. Even in pain, it turns you from a passenger into a participant. That small mental shift, that's freedom. Let me tell you something that still gives me goosebumps. Years ago, a student named Min came to one of my evening classes. He had just moved to the US and was struggling to adjust. He barely spoke in class. He looked tired all the time. One evening, after everyone had left, he stayed behind. He looked at me and said, do you think someone like me can become someone else? I didn't answer right away. I just nodded, slowly, gently. Then I said, I don't think you're trying to become someone else. I think you're becoming yourself, without fear. He looked down, smiled, and said, that's a better thought. That's what this whole episode is about. Not changing who you are, but freeing yourself to become who you were meant to be. Because one thought can build courage. One thought can heal shame. One thought can turn I can't into I'm ready. And you don't need to believe that thought 100%. You just need to hold it for long enough to let it grow. Here's something I believe with my whole heart. Every person, no matter where they're from, no matter how old, no matter how hurt, can shift their mindset. And when that shift happens, even just a little, your world begins to feel different because your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions shape your actions, and your actions shape your future. So it all begins with one sentence. What will yours be? Maybe it's, I'm allowed to take up space. I'm not late. I'm right on time. I'm not failing. I'm finding my way. Write that sentence down. Say it out loud. Whisper it when you feel afraid. Come back to it when you forget who you are. Because mindset is not a one-time decision. It's a daily choice. And every time you choose a thought that lifts you, you get a little stronger. So let me ask you gently, what would change in your life if you believe something new? What if the door you're waiting to open is actually inside your mind? And what if today, right now, you gave yourself permission to walk through? You don't need to be certain. You just need to be willing to grow, willing to begin again, willing to see yourself not as broken, but becoming, because you are, and I am so proud of you. Word count 1,000. Gentle emotional wind down. Take a breath with me. No rush, just presence. You've made space in your day to think, feel, and learn. And that alone means you're practicing your rich mindset. Whether you realize it or not, If this episode moved something inside you, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what thought you're choosing to believe. And if you'd like to keep growing your English and your mindset with me, subscribe so we can keep doing this together. Until next time, remember, you don't have to change everything overnight. Sometimes one kind thought is already enough to begin.